Dr. Russell Blaylock is a registered board-certified neurosurgeon and a best-selling author. He is a former clinical assistant professor of neurosurgery at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. He is the author of a number of books and numerous scientific papers and articles, including Excitotoxins, The Taste That Kills, 1994, Health and Nutrition Secrets That Can Save Your Life, 2002, Natural Strategies for Cancer Patients, 2003, and writes a monthly newsletter, The Blaylock Wellness Report. And I'm not going to go through all of his incredible bio. RussellBlaylockMD.com is just one of his websites, or BlaylockWellnessCenter.com. And in the second part of the interview this hour, we'll get into vaccines damaging the brain, these low cholesterol diets, what that's doing on top of the statins, some stuff that can really help people. Because I'm starting to hear this in mainline radio, mainline news, and folks, we need to appreciate trailblazers. Because I remember when he was on 3.5 years ago, during the fake H1N1, saying it's all fake, it'll increase your chances of getting the flu, it's going to actually hurt people. All of that a year later came out in Canadian, German studies. But he got attacked by the national media for coming on this show and for talking about it. And you know, the point is this is a guy who full-time tries to warn people and who's going out, and because we've sent people to interview him, you know, in big cities where there's, you know, 2,000 doctors packing the room sold out to where we can't even get seats, but we're in the back videotaping it, you know, so we can come back and show it to you here on the news, what he breaks down. And he is one of the unsung revolutionaries that's going to lead the new renaissance out of this. So when we talk about stuff for Alzheimer's, this is one of the leading experts. You better listen. The medical establishment is ignorant at the low level, but on top, the system does not want you to know about these treatments that are incredible. So I've said that. The reason I want to get him on in the first part of the interview, we'll show viewers, if you're radio listeners, this is up at Infowars.com. CEO sees Obama health law doubling some premiums. Health insurance premiums may as much as double for some small businesses. Aetna CEO is saying this. Health insurance premiums may as much as double for some small businesses and individual buyers in the U.S. when the Affordable Care Act's major provisions kick in. And that is what their chief executive said. Here's another one. L.A. Times, Blue Shield of California seeks rate hike of 20%, and then another 20% in 2014. Folks, my dad manages, he corrected me, I said a dozen, I always just say a dozen when I know it's something like that. 18 dental offices. But he also manages a bunch of other healthcare stuff, non-dental. I'm not going to get into it, but he's a dentist, oral surgeon. Everything Dr. Blaylock told us about Obamacare 3 years ago is exactly what my dad says, but now it's happening. Two big medical groups just are leaving the United States. They're just shutting down in Texas. They're just not going to operate now. Most of the dentists he knows, some of them that are 50 years old, they got 20 years in them. They're just retiring. They're done. I'm going to have Dr. Blaylock have the floor here and tell you what this is going to do. Of course, the government knows it's going to wreck health care. Then they take it over. The insurance companies wrote this. It doesn't cover pre-existing, all the fools let they get a free lunch. It lets the government say through a computer what treatments you can give. And that's why doctors are just, I'm done. I'm not going to have a death panel. That's what it is. As Bill Gates said, call it a death panel. We need it. The government now runs our health care. The government. The IRS now gets your health records. Nixon was going to go to jail for having IRS records, and he's the president. Now it's just on the books that the giant bureaucracy has it. I'm going to shut up now. Sir, go over it all for us here. And now people are seeing this wasn't rhetoric. The fools out there now are going to see a doubling in the next few years of their health care cost because an industry now can force you to buy their product. Dr. Blaylock.
Well, you're exactly right. And, of course, what people need to understand, this isn't new. This wasn't created under the Obama administration. This wasn't in the last 10 years. They have been working on this for over half a century. These people have been obsessed with taking over medical care because medical care is such a huge segment of the economy. It's important to control people. It's important if you want to control populations. If they want to implement their ideas, which you can read about many years ago, back in 1910, They were talking about controlling births, killing off old people because they were no longer useful to society. So all this was in the plans, and they've been working on it all of this time. Now, as a physician, we saw it much earlier than everyone else because they did it incrementally. And 20, 30 years ago, I was fighting this when I was in practice. My fellow physicians, I had more opposition from the fellow physicians than I did the enemies in government and other places, the liberal, the left who wanted this. Your fellow physician who was fighting you the most. The reason was they thought, well, you know, we're pretty smart guys, and I think if we just work with them, we just let them know that we'll help them save cost and we'll be reasonable in what we do, then they're going to come around and say, okay, that's all we wanted you to do is be reasonable. I told these physicians, I said, you don't understand socialism and collectivism, and you haven't read these papers written by these designers, these elitist social engineers. They don't care whether you're reasonable or not. Their intention is total, absolute control. Well, we've arrived. We're here now. Now, the purpose of doubling premiums and private insurance is to force you into the government total control.
And you said that. You said that. It's meant to bankrupt the system. And for those that don't know, they're going after former state medical board doctors and people, the states and the feds. For those that don't know, they're arresting and harassing doctors everywhere that give you the care you need when they don't follow what the computer tells them to do.
Oh, some of the cases are just unbelievable of the abuse of the physician. Because the physician was handed a group of rules when you join Medicare or Medicaid. And the rules, of course, like all socialist systems to draw you in, at first are lax, they're not enforced. And then once you're hooked, then they start increasing the number of regulations, the number of laws, and then they start picking physicians to make examples of. Well, we've reached a lot of those cases now. There's a case that's just recently reported in which a 63-year-old vascular surgeon was targeted, and they examined over 4,000 of his records. They found 2 records in which they said, well, you know, some of your language is not proper. He left out a T-O. And his coding for 5 patients was challenged by the federal government. Now, if you don't understand medical coding, everything a doctor does, to the most minor procedure in the office, to the most complex surgery, has a CPT code. It's a government code, which has to do with reimbursement. You're told as a physician, everything you do in which you bill the government has to have a CPT code. Well, the problem is there are tens of thousands of procedures for which there's no CPT code. So when we ask, well, what do we do about that? They said, well, just code it as close as you can. Physicians took them at their word. Well, now they've decided we need some examples of physician abuse. So they target people like this vascular surgeon. They said, you coded improperly, and we're going to put you in jail. And, of course, he's gotten a sentence of 10 months in prison, defrauding the federal government. Now, did he defraud the government? Well, this is the interesting thing about the law. The law says we don't have to show that you intended in any way to defraud the government. Just making an error is evidence of fraud and abuse.
And that's why all these companies are even getting out of the business now. The big mega insiders are left alone. It's the smaller and medium-sized companies can be white glove inspected. There's no way to operate. That's why these companies are just shutting down. Successful, providing good care, profitable, they're just shutting down, which, again, the socialists know that will bankrupt the whole system. And then you'll be forced into total government control.
That's right, and that's what they want. You know, socialism is about control. People need to understand that. All these people that are excited about socialism and collectivism, it's about human control. You're told what to do. If you don't, and you're not obedient, you're going to be punished. They make that quite plain, and this is what the physicians are learning now. I told them that 20 years ago. They didn't believe it. Now they're going to prison for very long terms, 10 years, 20 years. ruining their life, taking their license away.
And by the way, I hear that exact talk for a decade. You know, the doctors and the companies say, we're just going to work with them and be reasonable, and we're sure we'll be all right. No, there's no way out. You're being mafia taken over.
Right. And they're targeting these people and destroying their reputations, destroying their life, put them in prison with common criminals, and you could be killed in prison. I have cases of physicians in which they purposely tried to do that. They moved them across the country so they couldn't be near their families. You know, this is just stuff right out of the Soviet Union and communist China that we're seeing implemented.
Yeah, they're targeting the intelligentsia that has served the system so well. They're now just a high-tech lynching. Like Pol Pot shot people with glasses who can read. Here, they just take your license and put you in jail. We'll be back with Dr. Blaylock on the other side to break down the technicals of Obamacare. Get ready to pay double. That's your free health care. Alex Jones here with a message that could revolutionize health in this country. Going back about 1.5 years ago, I began to learn about the incredible health effects of longevity products. Aaron Dykes lost 92 pounds. We're going to show you some before and afters. Aaron, break down what happened, your story.
I've worked really hard with diet and exercise to try to lose weight, but I just didn't get the results. It just didn't happen. Then I saw what you were doing with InfoWarsTeam.com. I wasn't even trying to lose weight, but I got it because I wanted to feel better energy. I wanted that nutrition. Didn't even understand how that could kickstart my own weight loss goals. But the products did that for me. I found myself suddenly losing weight, more energetic, wanting to exercise, wanting to eat the right foods.
And they don't even advertise it as weight loss. I want to challenge our radio listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com, sign up as a distributor, and get wholesale pricing discounts at InfoWarsTeam.com. Now, again, a lot of doctors say, well, I can't even make money doing this. It's too dangerous. I'm out of health care. Well, you predicted that. That's the plan, bankrupt it. But and it takes a huge majority now to overturn Obamacare, really banker care, globalist, eugenics care. What do you now predict, Dr. Blaylock, is going to happen as people learn, as Bill Gates has laughed, we may play that clip later, that, yeah, death panels are good. Well, now we see the social engineering. Well, if we're all collectivized, the government's going to say what you eat and where you go and what you do and what surgeries you get. And guess what? That's what they've already done in England, where you wait, 18 months on average for brain surgeries that you need to get it quickly or you're going to die. I mean, I've watched the House of Commons debates. I haven't. How are they going to sell this and keep this in place when it wrecks everything?
Well, the idea is every failure is going to be because of sabotage. If you look at the Soviet system and all the communist socialist systems, they do the same thing. When they start to fail, it's not their fault. It's because people were sabotaging it. The doctors weren't playing fair. The doctors were cheating. The patients weren't doing right. So they just throw more money at it. They increase the regulations, the control. And so the answer is always, the problem is we don't have enough control of all the variables, which means oppression. We have to oppress the public and the providers and the whole medical care system, and then it'll work. And once people take this bitter medicine, they realize, gee, now we've arrived at the utopia. You know, as I tell people, collectivism and socialism depends on what's called the big lie. You paint this illusion of this utopia that's coming, and you tell people, just keep your eye on the painting, on the mural. Don't pay attention to reality. They're never allowed to look at reality. And every time they do, they say, just look back at the mural. Look what's coming if you just do what you're told. So people get on board. And you know, every communist country, every communist that's escaped has said the same thing. They were all true believers in the beginning, and very, very quickly, they understood that we're being deceived, we're being lied to, we're being led and regimented and controlled. And that's what this is all about. So, of course, there's going to be devastation, there's going to be death, there's going to be people dying, there's going to be care denied. But they'll say, oh, this is just the painful growth pains. This is the birth pains of the coming utopia. Once we ferret all this out, it's going to be great. And of course, all this pain is because of the previous system. You know, it's just like they always blame Bush or they blame somebody else for every system that happens a disaster in this administration is due to the previous administration. And so the fact that capitalism existed for so long and private property and this excessive freedom, that's why we're having to go through these terrible birth pains. So they're going to justify every failure. Just to show how idiotic this thing is. There's a law that says if a physician charges the taxpayer too little money, he is guilty of a crime. Now, this is unbelievable. The whole idea of these doctors going to prison is that they were defrauding the taxpayer. Well, here, if you actually are saving the taxpayer money by undercoding, that is coding for a less expensive procedure, you're also guilty of a crime, just the same as if you overcharge the government.
And for those that don't know, that's the age-old thing where doctors and the Hippocratic Oath, Ron Paul's talked about it here on the show, a medical doctor, that you were told going to medical school, you should do about a third of your work discounted or for free on a case-by-case example. And if it's some equipment or prosthesis or things, you should approach a charity to come in and pay for it, because this is a sacred honor to be a physician. Will you explain to them the old system and why Ron Paul pointed out nobody ever went without health care? Citizens just didn't know about it. The illegal aliens all know about it.
Well, when I was in medicine, for 40 years, counting my residency, we gave away millions of dollars of free care. I got up in the middle of the night and operated all night long on people who were indigent or for whatever reason, they didn't have money and we didn't charge them anything. Every Christmas, we would go through our bills and we would find elderly people who were trying to pay their bills off a little bit at a time. We would cancel their bills. We used to give insurance only. We would tell patients if they had difficulty paying the charge out of pocket, we would say, well, we'll just accept insurance.
Stay there. Let's explain what the old good medicine was that's now been taken over the last 30 years, now converting to pure eugenics-based death medicine, death panels. They now brag the government runs your medicine. Unbelievable. We'll be right back with Dr. Blaylock.
State on the highway patrol.
You know, it really hit me yesterday when I got pulled over for reportedly going 8 miles over the speed limit. I'm going to challenge the ticket, of course. It's all a fraud anyways. And the guy said, sign here. And I didn't have my latest insurance card, even though their computer showed I had insurance. They gave me a ticket for that, too. And I was just thinking, you know, they make you buy car insurance, but then they let the illegal aliens be exempt. And it just really hit me that now I've got to go buy health care, even though I already have insurance. And now, obviously, it's written by the insurance companies. It's going to go up in price. And they get to charge you more for less procedures and also make sure the doctors and the medical facility get less of that money. So, you know, they might charge you $1 million pretty soon to put a Band-Aid on you. And this is what happens in every communist or socialist or collective system. And why is Bill Gates and Warren Buffett supporting it? Well, they're taking over healthcare, and they admit it's death panels. I want to finish up with Obamacare with Dr. Russell Blaylock here in a moment in this long segment we have, and segue into the cholesterol conspiracy, statin drugs, vaccines this year, the biggest push I've ever seen for them. His website's BlaylockWellnessCenter.com. Amazing books, and also some pretty amazing healthcare products that he's developed as well. So, again, BlaylockWellnessCenter.com, or just Google Russell Blaylock, MD, and it's pretty easy to find, or start page at startpage.com. But briefly here, don't forget, we are listener supported. When you click on the web banners and support our sponsors, that funds our operations at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, and we promote and you hear me endorse on air things I use, like the high-quality products at InfoWarsHealth.com. the essential fatty acids, the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, all of it. That supports the broadcast, InfoWarsHealth.com, plus great products we've researched with medical doctors and others, finding the best products out there. But also things like the ProPure stainless steel water filtration systems. Clean water is so important. There's so many additives, so many toxins, sodium fluoride, you name it. We've got fluoride filters available with it. InfoWarsStore.com, promo code WATER15. You can get 15% off. We're going to end that promotion this Sunday. And some people can still get it by Christmas. We can't guarantee it now, though, just because of the way shipping works. But you can order. It's a great gift to give. WATER15. That's WATER15 is the promo code to get 15% off on the already lowest price at InfoWarsStore.com or call 888-253-3139. And lastly, you can do all your Christmas shopping at once. You know, we stream video of the daily radio show and the nightly news 5 nights a week, 7 o'clock. All my films, my book, Paul Watson's book, thousands of special productions. It's really ridiculous how much is there. PrisonPlanet.tv or InfoWarsNews.com. One membership, $5.95 a month, now can be used by 10 people simultaneously with one username and passcode you create. Give it as a gift, just in an e-card or in a physical card. Hey, here's your documentary, you know, news website subscription. 59 cents a month is how much that gift is to give people, and it supports our transmission. Not really at that price. That just pays for the bandwidth and our growing media platform, PrisonPlanet.tv. Okay, Dr. Blaylock, this is a long segment. I want to try to shut up and give you the floor here, you know, for some large spaces to finish up where you see we're going and ways to hopefully reverse Obamacare, because they lied and said it will not increase premiums. Obviously, it would immediately because it was written by the insurance companies. And where you see all this going, ways to fight it. And then I want to segue into suddenly ABC News, CBN, you name it, about coconut oil that you wrote about, I don't know, 20 years ago or whatever, and other types of good fats and what they're doing for the brains, and, you know, the fact that so many of these disorders we see are really just nutrient deficiencies, and some of that information, because it's something that people can really do right now.
To go back to the Obamacare, what's coming? You know, the interesting thing when I first read through the Obamacare thing that struck me is that it really says specifically very little. What it does is it refers to literally tens of thousands of other federal documents, rules, and regulations. And it leaves a lot to arbitrary change after the law is enacted. Now, what's coming is, and you got to remember, when Hillary first tried to create this system, when her husband was the president, she met with all the major pharmaceutical CEOs in secret because they were going to make a killing out of nationalizing health care, because they would be the sole supplier of all medicines all over the United States. No one else would be allowed to supply these medications. That would get rid of their competition. The same thing holds here. And what we're going to see is that the manufacturers of vaccines that have been anointed, that were anointed during the H1N1, are going to be told, are going to tell the public, in order to receive this care, you have to have all your vaccinations up to date.
By the way, they're already doing that, as you know, with medical workers, anybody that goes to the hospital. But they're already saying if you want your welfare check, you've got to get all the shots. So this is forced government medicine, medical tyranny.
Exactly. And it's all designed to control people. So if you go to your doctor for, say, a carpal tunnel problem, you're going to be told, well, we looked at your record and you haven't had your meningococcal vaccine this year. So you're going to have to get it or you can't be treated. So everyone now is going to be force vaccinated. The companies like Merck and Novartis are going to make fortunes if you're vaccinating every human being in the United States, and eventually they plan for the entire world.
Unbelievable.
You'll be told what you can eat, what you cannot eat. You'll be told when to exercise, how much exercise to do. You're going to be told you have to take statins, you have to take antihypertensive medications. The children will be placed on these medications. This is already being discussed. They were even talking about putting these medications in the water supply to force everyone to be on these medications, whether they wanted to or not.
And by the way, as you're talking, I just can't help but butt in. Everything you're talking about is already being phased in, with the mayor of New York saying what you can drink, what you can eat, with Michelle Obama. My kids were going to private school part-time, and even this Christian school 2 days a week as an academy for homeschoolers. It was big. They were accredited, so they had to do workbooks on Michelle Obama telling them what was healthy. But she doesn't tell you GMO or aspartame is bad or MSG. She tells you you get 850 calories a day, and the kids are literally starving. I'm sorry. It's just they're now doing forced inoculations in California without parental consent. Everything you're saying is already starting.
Yeah, well, they have a very incremental program to get the public used to it. And they've done an incredible brainwashing of the public on the necessity of vaccination for herd immunity. Herd immunity is a complete fraud, and I've proved it. No one's challenged it. So what they're doing, they're building the case that for the public health, we have to force people to receive all of these vaccines. Well, it's been shown they have over 125 vaccines that they're planning to make mandatory. This is huge profits for these companies, and it's going to destroy the health of tens of millions of Americans. And as you get older and you get these vaccines and your health begins to rapidly deteriorate, guess what? You're not going to be allowed to get health care that you think you're going to get, because you're going to be on the list of people that's too old to get these procedures done. So you're going to be left to die. There's your death panels. Now, all of this has been talked about on the healthcare sites and these tax-free foundations for almost half a century. People just have not been reading it. They're not paying attention. You've brought up so many of these things to the public. You read these documents. You dig these things out. But unfortunately, it sounds so outlandish and crazy and conspiratorial. People just can't bring themselves to believe it. And it's like C.S. Lewis in his book, The Screwtape Letters. He said the devil's greatest weapon is that people don't believe in him. Well, the collectivist and the socialist and the communist greatest weapon is that you don't believe they're going to do these nefarious things.
Well, yeah, they now laugh and say there's no such thing as socialism or communism anymore, even though it's taking over the whole planet. Well,
what they do is they do wordplay. They said, this is not socialism. Well, in a technical definition and previous definitions of socialism, it's not, because socialism is the nationalization of all businesses and industry. The new socialism, which was Antonio Gramsci's idea, and later Saul Alinsky's popularized it, was that we don't actually take over the company, we just regulate it. And we regulate how much it produces, how much it pays its employees, what is their work hours, what is the...
Exactly. The communists can't ever run anything but a death camp, so they just sit back and you run your operation and they siphon it off and tell you what to do.
That's exactly right. That's what National Socialism was. That's what fascism in Italy was. And that's what we have today, what's called corporatism. Now, if you look back in the history of collectivism, it was based on the corporate model. They loved the corporation because the corporation has an elite board that makes all the decision, regiments all of its employees, controls all the systems and everything within the corporation. And they said, what we need to do is produce a corporate America and then a corporate world in which a giant corporation rules everything. Everybody thinks this is government taking over corporations. No, it's just the opposite. It's corporations taking over the government. Because what you have is Council on Foreign Relations. Look at the list of people in Council on Foreign Relations. It's the CEOs and directors of every major corporation in the United States. Look at the Trilateral Commission. Same thing. All the major international corporations and financial houses. Look at Bilderberg. Same list, same people. And it's all corporate. Now, the dream of the Rockefellers was that we would create a corporate control of the United States. They look at government and they say government's inefficient. And this is the whole essence of collectivism, is efficiency. Well, efficiency means making people do what they don't want to do, taking their freedom away. We know best as an elite they say, what you need to do, where you need to be, where you need to live, what your occupation should be, what you should eat, when you should die, if you should live. This is what socialism, collectivism is. And if you pay close attention to what they're saying, that's what they're telling you. We're the smart people. We know how to engineer society. Society's chaotic under capitalism and freedom. We can't stand this chaos anymore. We need to have social engineering and social control. And that's what all of this is about.
How do we fight it? How do we resist them? I mean, one thing is I'm trying to exercise more. I'd become a workaholic and gained a lot of weight and gotten unhealthy. I'm reversing that by the grace of God. I mean, I guess we get healthy and we exercise and we really get the proper nutrition, understanding that there's not going to be a medical system to go to soon. And this isn't a joke. I mean, Paul Watson's worked for me 10 years this year. It's 10 years. Great shape, jogs, 3% body fat, lives in England, riding, for us. And I told you the story last time you were on, Doc. For a month, he had some type of strep and cold, couldn't get over it, had been into the doctor, waited 2 weeks to get in. I couldn't imagine having to wait 2 weeks the few times I've really had to go. I mean, I'm like, get me in there now when you're coughing up blood. I mean, it was rough. And then 2 weeks into it, he finally got in, and they gave him a little pack with some aspirin and some Advil and some Tylenol and some lozenges and some, Kleenex and stuff. And you said, I guess, in the military, that's what you gave you. I got a lot of emails about that. That's what they say they give you in the military. There wasn't like when I go to a private clinic, boom, I'm in 20 minutes. They swab the throat. They say, we'll call you in 2 hours and tell you what the prescription is, because if it's bacterial or viral, they got to find out. These quack doctors, you go to them, they just give you antibiotics, don't even check. But, the clinics, places I go, they do. I couldn't imagine that. And then I said, why don't you go to private doctors? I said, I know you have those. He goes, listen, Alex, you've got to get permission from the government clinic to then go to the private physician. I mean, this is total control. I'm sorry to tell that story again, but this is total tyranny.
Well, it's an example of the regimentation. You're not an individual. The enemy of collectivism is the individual. You read all of the literature on the philosophy of this socialism, communism, Marxism, Leninism, fascism, National Socialism. It's always the same. The enemy is the individual. They don't recognize individual. They recognize collectives. You're a number. You're a Social Security number. You're some other kind of number. And if we have to deny you care, or if you die waiting for care, it's no big deal. You were just a number. And people are not used to that in the United States. As a Christian, we recognize individuals. God recognizes individuals. And, you say, what can we do? Well, number one, we've got to re-strengthen our faith. They have spent enormous efforts to convince people there's no God, that Jesus is not the Son of God. And so they've destroyed the faith base of the foundation of our country. We need to reestablish that, number one, over everything else. We can improve our health so that if we are forcibly vaccinated, we're not likely to have the devastating reactions to these vaccines. We know how to do that now. We know how to improve health of the elderly so that they don't get sick. They are seriously ill like they do now. Many of the neurodegenerative diseases can be prevented by proper exercise and use of nutrients and diet. The other thing that we could do is nullification. That is the most important weapon we have left. The vote has been taken away by voter fraud. So no matter how you vote, they're going to cheat, change the machines, change the vote, get people in that are illegal to vote, etc. So what the states have left is the state can nullify laws by passing its own state laws. And if you're in a court, if you're on a jury, and it's a federal case, say an IRS case against a citizen or an EPA case or one of these medical cases, and you're on the jury, you can nullify it by voting not guilty, no matter what the evidence shows. That is the law of the land of the Constitution. And this was established in the beginning of the United States because the courts had judges that were British. and the American juries.
You know, God bless you. I don't know if you heard this a month ago, but it made national news. I've called for the Second American Revolution to use the Declaration of Independence to not create a new country, but to remove the globalist and reinstate the republic. It's an instant download, re-upload. And what you're saying is so true. There's election fraud. Obama didn't really win. I'm not saying Romney was good either. He wrote Obamacare for the globalists. The point is it was all fixed. Only admitting that we're under real authoritarianism that now plans to mop us up, only admitting how much trouble we're in will beat them. The minute we understand they're lying criminal authoritarians, hell-bent on enslaving us, we turn the tide. Do you agree with that statement, Dr. Blaylock?
Exactly. You can't compromise with evil. These are evil people. They have evil intentions. So this nonsense of the Republican Party saying, oh, well, our problem is we have too many conservatives. Oh, we're defending.
God bless you. I want to hear exactly. Harry Belafonte went on Al Sharpton's show and said we should, quote, just lock people up. We should just round up the Republicans and like third world dictators do and, quote, throw them in jail. And that's exactly what the Weathermen came out in federal court were planning to do, the people that advise Obama. You see, I've studied these people. And just like Dr. Blaylock was just saying, this stuff all sounds crazy. It's because truth is stranger than fiction. And the very same crews and the sciences that the Nazis and the Soviets and the Maoists used are now being used here. I've talked to so many former Eastern Europeans who are successful businessmen and women who fled here in the 70s and 80s. And they are so freaked out. They're scared for America because they say, well, I have seen this. I have heard this. This is a blueprint. And exactly what Dr. Blaylock said, folks, we've got to really understand this is war. This isn't just some boss hog corruption taking over. These are vicious control freaks. Anything else on that subject, Dr. Blaylock? And then some basic facts on why do you think it's starting to come out that so many of the Alzheimer problems are the statin drugs and the lack of good oils?
Well, yeah, you know, the Harry Belafontes and these people making these statements, they've been empowered by the rise of the left. The left is seeing and flexing its muscles because they're seeing that they're winning, essentially. And they're winning by stealing elections. Now, what we need to do is, as I say, use the power of nullification on juries. You can protect your fellow citizen against these abuses by the federal government. Just serve on a jury. Now, the judge cannot direct you how to vote. People get intimidated because they say, well, the judge gave us instructions. Well, he can instruct all day long.
So jury nullification, elaborating on that point you made before the break, though, and then we'll get into the other issue briefly here. When you talk about Republicans, that is waving the white flag when they were always part of the establishment to say, we need to accept socialism. And, Glenn Beck comes out and says, we need to push, basically gay marriage or whatever, because, we need to be like the Democrats. That's how we'll win. That's all football issues anyways. My point is that's a total capitulation. And the left says, oh, great, look, we're totally taking over. They're going to give in to us.
Well, yes, and once you yield in one area, they'll just force you to yield in another. I mean, all they have to do is make something else unpopular. They have to make the fact that you want to own property unpopular. Make the fact that you want to own a gun and protect your family unpopular. Make the fact that you want to choose your own food and grow a garden in your yard unpopular. And then with each case, we're going to compromise. What we've seen over the last 75 years is we're always compromising towards the left. There's never a compromise toward the right. We always to the left. Now, those of us that are a lot older, what we know is that if you look back in 1950s, when I was growing up, if any of these things were even discussed back then, people would laugh at you and say, there's no way the American people would allow that. You got to be crazy. So if you go back in time in a time capsule, they would laugh you out of the room.
And now the official Army manuals, as we pull those up, I want to give the number, say they're now preparing, quote, re-education centers. Doctor, they even use the Soviet term.
Oh, exactly. This is what's so shocking is they even use the terminology that's used by KGB and the Cheka from the Soviet Union. They don't even have any qualms about using this terminology now because they feel, well, we've won. There's nothing they can do. They've lost the battle, and we're going to implement our programs against their will. This government today is using executive power more than any president has ever dreamed of, even FDR. So
the president won't even let Congress see his secret executive order on cybersecurity. Why even have a Congress? It's Army Manual FM 3-39.40. Re-education camps now being established for political dissidents in the United States. And what do the manuals say the political dissidents are? Gun owners, conservatives, libertarians, Christians who believe in the second coming of Christ, number one enemy, returning veterans. Anybody they think will fight their armed takeover. And they're just getting rid of the good cops and police and military that know the truth and creating a cadre. Dr. Blaylock, in closing on that subject, though, the Soviet Union, before the Tsars, was already a police state. They didn't have guns. Nazi Germany, people were pretty compliant. In the Weimar Republic, I don't see them fully being successful here if it wasn't for our moral decay. And I'm not on some high horse, but like Ron Paul said, the general public really are demonic slobs now in this country. But that doesn't mean that a large minority of us are still going to go quietly into the Soviet night.
Well, your moral strength is the only protection you have. Once a country loses its moral strength, then you'll compromise with anything. You just say, well, in order to feed my family, I'll go ahead and do this. And if they want me to round up people and help them do that or spy on my neighbors, I'll do that. Whatever it takes, because you have no moral values anymore. You're into this relativism.
And you're really stupid and don't know that you always end up getting rounded up later yourself.
And you're going to be targeted because they can't trust you. This is one of the things you learn if you read the history of the Soviet Union and China and Cuba, is they kill their own because they can't trust them. Castro killed his best friend because he couldn't trust him. A friend of mine, Dennis Cuddy, has written some of the best books digging into the history of all of this. I would urge your readers to look up Dennis Cuddy on Amazon.com.
Yeah, let's get Dr. Cuddy back on. We only got 2 minutes left, Doc. You got to come back soon. I know you're a busy man. Briefly, the coconut oil thing. That's finally starting to break. What does coconut oil do with Alzheimer's, but some of the other oils? And what do statins do to your brain?
Well, coconut oil contains a very high level of what's called medium-chain triglycerides. It's one of the few fuels that the brain can use other than glucose, sugar. We think that what happens in Alzheimer's disease is the brain is no longer able to utilize sugar efficiently, and so the brain goes into periods of hypoglycemia, and you become confused, disoriented, lose memory. If that keeps up, it triggers excitotoxicity in the brain and starts destroying these connections. Well, what the coconut oil does, it reduces brain inflammation, which is a major part of all of this process, reduces excitotoxicity, calms those microglia down, and it supplies a fuel to the brain so the brain can operate efficiently and will not be producing these huge storms of free radicals that occur when it's starving. So what we see is that the coconut oil is doing so many things to correct what we know is impaired in the Alzheimer's brain.
But medical doctors won't tell their patients to take it.
Well, they don't know about it. They won't read the literature. They wait to be told what drug to use. They're all waiting for the drug that cures Alzheimer's.
It really is the intellectual laziness is what's killing us. It's not that people aren't smart. They're lazy.
Well, that and the government has them so busy trying to protect themselves. They're so busy filling out forms and reading manuals and CPT codes and that they don't have time to actually go and research it. And they're exhausted at the end of the day after dealing with the bureaucracy all day long.
Well, that's the truth. Yeah, that's
makes a big difference. These are not minor things. And if you look into the research of Alzheimer's disease, these are the hottest areas of research and the scientists are most excited about. It's things like the coconut oil.
Yeah, but you talked about this you were one of the first, weren't you?
Well, a friend of mine, Bruce Fife, wrote a book on it, and I wrote the foreword to his book. But his book is one of the best on this.
Well, Dr. Blaylock, will you promise to come back in the new year?
I'll be glad to.
God bless you. Alex Jones here with some very important breaking news. The latest edition of InfoWars magazine, December 2012, is out. And no, we don't really cover people that think that the world is going to end on December 21st. We are predicting the world will not end. But we are predicting that the end of our free republic may take place if people don't wake up and get aggressive and angry and speak out against what's happening. This man wants your guns. That is the cover of the 60-page glossy magazine, jam-packed with information and the truth. And you know what they say, the truth will set you free. You can buy the magazine at cost in bulk in groups of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, right up to 100 to give everyone you know. And believe me, people will open this up. It is full of unbelievably powerful graphics, cartoons. We've got artist profiles on patriots out there that are exposing the globalists. And it's got several articles breaking down the facts that Obama and his globalist controllers want to disarm the American people and are going to try to ban all semi-autos. The facts are in this magazine, and this is the most important of the 4 issues we have ever put out. And when you do sign up for the subscription, you don't just get 12 in the mail. When supplies last of the previous issues, we will put back issues like the November issue, Zombies, Are You a Zombie? Breaking down how television has put the general public into a trance-like state. You will get that when you sign up for the next 12 issues in December of 2012. Now, you're out there watching saying, Alex, we know all about the New World Order, and yes, the magazine's a great thing, but why should we support it? Well, you're also supporting free speech and print 2.0. With the internet kill switches coming in and all the rest of this, it's important to have physical copies that are out there, just like the founders did in the 10 years leading up to the Revolutionary War in 1776. They put out their little primitive broadsheets printed on both sides, pointing out the crimes of the crown, and that helped organize and awake the public to finally win the physical victory when war and conflict unfortunately came. My goal is to expose the globalist and to win the info war so it doesn't become a physical war. We've seen Hillary Clinton saying that they're winning the info war. Top globalist Zbigniew Brzezinski says that nationalism is growing and that people are waking up against outside forces because of populism and alternative media. This particular issue of the magazine is the one to give friends and family. It's the one to put under the tree or in the stocking. It's the one to leave at church. It's the one to leave at the dentist office. This is the one, the December issue of InfoWars magazine with Ron Paul, the attack on the Second Amendment, the police state, the GMO takeover. It's all there and all available at InfoWarsStore.com or by calling 888-253-3139. Get your subscription or buy the magazines in bulk today. I'm Alex Jones signing off for InfoWars.com. Until next time, remember, if you're watching this, if you're receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.